So I really like history. I've always been interested in history. And I was reading some stuff yesterday about the Roman Empire. Again, that's a part of history that interests me as well. And it was all about different Roman generals, and they were saying how in the Middle East, the Romans got as far as what we would call present day Iran. And when they came up against the Iranians had a really powerful army that the Romans weren't sure that they could beat. Both sides were very wary of each other, so they had a truce, and they stopped. The Romans stopped their empire at Iran, and both sides agreed not to attack each other because they didn't know who would win. But interestingly enough, part of the Roman Empire was what we would call present-day Israel. And whenever the Jewish people had an uprising, the Romans would crush them, mercilessly, can't say that word, but they would crush them. And one of the reasons they did that was because they were scared that if they showed any weakness in that whole area, the Iranians would attack, overpower them, and take control of that whole area right the way through, like I said, present day, what we call Israel, all the way to Syria. And as I was listening to this, I thought, wow, what's changed? If you turn on the news now, quite often, the Israelis are on about fighting the Iranians and Syria. And it was just that really struck me. I thought, wow, this is really, how interesting is this? Have we learned anything? We're talking about centuries and centuries ago that all this was happening, and it's still happening today. That's why I've called this, what's changed? What have we learned? And then I was reading a little bit about George Washington, who was an amazing guy. Didn't know much about him, to be honest, and I still don't. But after reading a bit about him, I want to find out more. He just sounds like an amazing human being who did lots of things. But one of the things that he did really successfully was bring the American people together, to unite the American people from all the different states who were fighting with each other, in competition with each other. And we're talking about times here where we didn't have Facebook. People had to go out and talk to people, and it was no mean feat. George Washington achieved some tremendous things, amazing things for the American people. And then just sitting in the garden now, waiting for a guy to come and have a look at my alarm system, which is playing up. I went back to this book, which I've read before and I loved, found it really interesting. And it's all about DNA and cellular mechanics and biocellular mechanics. But one of the things that strikes me about when I read this book before was that how every cell in the human body's got intelligence, and they all work together. They're all linked. They all work together, a bit like George Washington bringing all the American people together. And each cell's got its job. It knows what it's supposed to do. And at a certain point, as you're listening to this now, thousands and thousands of cells will be dying and being reborn in your body. When those cells don't do what they're supposed to do, they don't die. What happens is new cells are born and they multiply and multiply. The old cells are still there. They're not dying. And that's how we get tumours. That's how cancers are formed. Certain cancers. So, it's when things go wrong, the body doesn't work in tandem, the cells don't do what they're supposed to do. That's when things go wrong, and we get ill, and obviously that can lead to death and all sorts of things. But it just got me thinking about even the planets. When we look at the planets, how the planets are all connected and joined together. For example, our closest planet, the moon, it affects our tidal systems. And this just got me thinking, as human beings, why can't we work together? Why don't we work together? Will the day ever come, and I believe that it will, where countries work together instead of fighting against each other? Because nature has given us clues in the solar system, the cells in our body. When things work together, when things work in the process and do what they're supposed to do, which is probably not a great way of putting it, everything's perfect, or as close to perfection as you can get. But when we fight against each other, when our power is being together, George Washington bringing all the American people together. I'm just linking all these things together for me now. The book on the biology of belief, of cellular biomechanics, the Romans. You know, I think it's about let's work together, let's try and join together, help each other, serve each other. And I guess the message for me, I do believe it will happen. And I just hope that one day that we can all work together and the world will be a better place. And I guess that I've got off on a bit of a tangent here on waffling, but you know, I think we need to start listening to nature, listening to the planets. There's some real messages here, and one of famous sayings is that if we don't listen to history, we'll just keep repeating it. And you know, listening to the Roman stuff today, we just keep repeating it again and again and again. Have we learned anything? And that's just what I wanted to share today. I hope everyone's okay. Enjoy the rest of your day. Lovely sunshine here. And I'm just going to go and sit in the garden for a little bit and wait for this alarm guy to come and have a look at my alarm system. Okay, speak to you soon. Take care.